At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Jug. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. And can you share with the audience where you're from?
So I'm an hour and a half down south from Sydney, Australia. So I live in a beautiful ocean location of Shell Cove, right on the marina.
Wow, that sounds great. I'm sure
It
people are going to be
is.
envious of that by a
It is.
long
It's a
shot.
beautiful location. Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share with the audience your background story, who you are, how you came to this point in your life, and what were some of the experiences that brought you here.
Okay. So that's a long story. I will shorten it. So I've been a healer for 25 years. Um, Something that I wasn't expecting to happen in my life. Um, I woke up spiritually, I suppose you could say, accidentally. It was not something that I was expecting. I personally am a very grounded person. My head is very scientific, so I love quantum physics and epigenetics and all of those things. And what happened was I had separated from my partner of 10 years and had two beautiful kids with him, and found myself as a single mum and going, what am I doing? So I became a massage therapist. I became a qualified massage therapist, and through that process decided to move up to far north Queensland, which is where he was, so that he could see the kids and vice versa. And a lady that I met was hassling me to go and see a psychic. And it wasn't like, I just thought they're charlatans, like there's no way I'm going to see this woman. But she kept on insisting, to the point, my dad died when I was 15. And so she was like, you'll get to, speak to your dad and all the things. And I was like, no, not interested. But she kept on hassling me. So I ended up going just to shut her up, to tell you the truth. And through that process, I then went to this woman, and she walked into the room and said, what are you doing here? You can do what I do, but obviously you don't know it. And it was a bit of shock, but also I thought, well, here we go. This is her way of reeling me in. And long story short, I had my dad brush my cheek. So it was the first time I sort of felt this experience of spiritual connection. She said, I looked up and I said, what was that? And she said, oh, that was your dad. He just wants you to listen. But when I got home, I had things touching me. It was really weird for about 2 or 3 days. So I rang her back and said, what's going on? And she said, oh, they're just happy that you've woken up and it'll settle down. And so I wanted to go back. I basically said, can I book in again? And she said no. So I was like, wait a minute, the charlatan doesn't want my money. What's going on here? Um, but through that process, I now understand why she said that, because in the process of that, I had to work it all out by myself. And I started being able to feel energy, and because I wasn't in any particular circles, it was all an experience that I had. So, I ended up in a little group, where I was, sort of self-contained, and having experiences and understanding what was going on for me. But, move into now, and about 4 years ago, I discovered a process called alchemy and recoding. So alchemy is how to create. Basically, is the steps of how to create your life the way you want it. And recoding is a process of clearing all the things that are getting in the way from our unconscious, which is this, our unconscious is full of patterns. That's what it does. It's
Right.
a pattern, it's just like software. Once we have a particular behavior, it locks it in, our neural pathways lock together. And now we've got, like riding a bike or brushing our teeth, we also have decisions that we've made about ourselves and the world that keep us alive and surviving. So we tend to go into a space of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not perfect. So we tend to lock in these negative experiences because, we got smacked because we tried to do something that was unsafe, and so as a little kid, we make these decisions that, maybe I'm not safe in the world. And through those decisions locked in, as we grow up as an adult, they're still there in the unconscious. And so we're trying to grow and expand and be a better person and, live the dream. But we've got this unconscious that's holding us back from actually living our full potential. So what recoding does is it is able to go to the source of where those codes or those thoughts and beliefs and emotions are stored and flick the switch, sort of like neutralize them and dissolve them. Well, it was like, I have been 25 years of doing healing. It was like collapsing time. So the last 4 years, I've, gone to multiple six figures in my business. I breezed through a massive health challenge. I had a 4.5 centimeter brain tumor and breezed through that. And the best part was I went to go for a walk down the beach in my local area. And I was the only one on the beach. And this beautiful man walks past, and I met the love of my life. And
Oh, wonderful. So,
yeah.
you use the word alchemy,
Hmm.
and I think that may have a few definitions. I can't even really define it well in my mind unless I look it up. But as you say, that's a process. Can you share with the audience what is the process of alchemy? What are you talking about there?
Mm. So alchemy is, most people know alchemy because they say it's, turning lead into gold, for example. And alchemy is making the fixed volatile and the volatile fixed. So our emotions are fixed. And so it's making them volatile, making them, dissolving those processes, those emotions, beliefs, like I was talking about before. And then the volatile fixed, meaning actually bringing in to reality our fullest potential. So there's 5 steps to the process the way I do it. You can do it in 4, maybe 5 still. The very first one, and this is where there's a lot of information out there, law of attraction and spiritual people talking about manifesting, and this movie The Secret came out, and it gives half truths, which can be dangerous in a way because it's giving people half the information and they wonder why it's not working. But there's 5 steps. So basically, the very first step is you've got to know what it is that you want to create. You've got to have a fixed focal point of what it is you're choosing to create, right? So just say you're choosing to create the life that you love. You've got to know what that means to you. You've got to have a visual experience of it, a mental clarity, all those things, right? So, a connection to it in some way. And I can go into that a little bit more if you want to at a later stage. The next part is the second step is that you've got to become that person now, because There is no past and there is no future. There is only the now moment. And so to become that person now is, if I was living the life I love, what does that mean to me? And how am I embracing that now? What would my future self, the part of me that's living that, feel, experience, believe about herself or himself, believe about the world, all of those things. You start becoming it now. By becoming it now, you're showing your unconscious that it's safe, because remember, our unconscious believes it's not good enough, right? And so if we start going into the feeling of good enough, because now I'm living the life I love, the unconscious sees it as unknown and not safe, because it's got a different identity. So the unconscious will try and pull you away from that experience, because even if the stuff that it does know is uncomfortable, it knows it survived it. So you've got to experience it now, and then look at the third step, which is what's going on in my current reality that's getting in the way. And this is why I love recoding, because it's not having to go pull up all the traumas of the past. No, you don't have to go and talk to a psychologist or anything like that. It's not having to, rewire those neural pathways into the trauma. It's just going, okay, if I want to live my life, the life that I love, become it now, what's getting in the way in my current reality? What beliefs are coming up? How do I feel about it that's causing any resistance? We just look at the now moment. So now you've got, your audience won't see this, but I've got an elastic band showing that there's 2 points in the field, like in the universal field, right? In the quantum field. So now we've got a desired end result and we've got a current reality. So this is a structure. We've now got 2 points that we can work with. So the third place is current reality. The fourth is clearing whatever's getting in the way in that current reality. So if you've got thoughts and beliefs and emotions of not good enough or incapable, don't belong, whatever it might be, we clear them out of the way. Now, recoding does it from the source. So it's quick, fast, permanent. It's really awesome. But you could do this with mindset training as well, just by flipping, and working with just the conscious and the unconscious. So the fourth step is clearing whatever's getting in the way. And of course, the fifth step is one of the most important. It's taking action on that. So now that you've got whatever's in the way out of the way, what action do you take right now here to move you towards whatever it is that you want to create? What is the actionable step that I can take? Just one step. So you don't need to know the whole how, like to get to, $1 million as a desired end result. You don't need to know all the steps, just one actionable step right now that you can take towards that. Because one of the parts of that is showing that you're unconscious that it's safe to take that step, and the unconscious then starts coming on board, and then that's how you collapse in time, right?
Well, and you talk about the unconscious as I've interviewed some people. One of the interesting things that have come up, and I don't know the exact percentages, but they talk about the fact, just from a scientific standpoint, that our conscious brain is only what, 8, 9, 10%. Subconscious makes up the rest. So when we consider what is truly affecting our lives, as you said, we have to realize that it's that unconscious, the imprints, all of those things that are going on that literally are affecting our lives. And so I think that makes such a difference. But as we talk about each of those steps, you talked about visualization. Can you go into that a little bit deeper?
Absolutely. And just to bring that up again about the unconscious, because the unconscious has made up these decisions as a child, it doesn't recognize time. So it's still in this space of thinking that it's keeping us alive in some way. And often a lot of people think the unconscious, like, oh, and they get all annoyed and they see it as the bad, as the enemy. But actually, at one stage, the unconscious, that decision that you made did keep you alive. It kept you safe in some way, like there was a reason it made that decision. So when we can recognize and bring it on as a friend instead of seeing it as an enemy, we've got a better chance of being able to move the needle more. So, and visualization is definitely one of those processes, because when the unconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what isn't real. So is just seeing a vision, is seeing a memory. Well, you can have a memory of the past, but you can also go and have a memory of the future. So by visualizing what it is that you want to create and doing this on a regular basis, right? Every morning, waking up, making the decision to feel this feeling of living the life that you love or whatever it might be, and then experiencing it by visualizing it, putting a smile on your face, like that feeling, all the feelings that go with it, the beliefs that go with it, all of those things, you are showing the unconscious and shifting rewiring your brain waves. You're shifting the frequency of feeling, depleted or down or whatever it is that might happen first thing in the morning, to actually elevating yourself. And so visualization is a really important aspect of this, because you're reprogramming your whole system. And so because we live in space and time, the more you do this, eventually, because you're feeling it, we're feeling humans, right? We feel. The more you do this, what happens is, because we're an energetic being, all the particles of the universe basically all orchestrate to show this in your reality, because you can't be in a space where you're feeling elated if the rest of your life is trauma or whatever. Eventually everything starts coming into that space with you, and that's how you shift your reality.
Well, and the next step that you talk about is becoming now,
Mm,
and I find that so difficult. I mean, I try to meditate every day, right? And
yeah.
and most of the time I'm doing walking meditation because then I can combine a little bit of exercise. But what I find is I think of that concept and try to picture in my mind who it is I want to be, whether that's more physical health or whatever that happens to be. I find that really difficult. It's like, okay, this is who I am. And yet I think about that and it's like, yeah, but not really, you know, and,
The
and,
rational mind
and
comes
so
back
if I
in.
keep
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is who I am, this is who I am, but then I'm not necessarily experiencing that. How do people really get to the point from a mindset standpoint and everything else to where, they can say to themselves, this is who I am becoming. This is who I am in the future and in the present, when in fact you're still living your present life.
This is why I love recoding, because to do it with your mind, so just working with the conscious and the unconscious, you've got to have a really strong commitment, conviction, make that choice. And because the unconscious, you think about how long you've been alive on the planet, right? The
Right.
unconscious has been making a lot of decisions, and a lot of decisions. Like, I want to give you an example. Before I actually discovered recoding, I'd had like a healing experience with this guy online, and he took me through this process. And so I had a memory of being about 3 years old. I'm in a cot and in a bedroom, in the bedroom at my house that I grew up in. I've got two brothers. They're 6 and 7 years older than me. They're in the lounge room. I can hear them carrying on, playing up, all the things. And mum's in the kitchen making dinner. So I'm 3 years old. I'm curious, adventurous. I want to know what's going on out there. And so I'm, screaming and carrying on and rattling the cot walls to try and get some attention. But now as an adult having this experience, and seeing this visualization, I know mum knows I'm safe. So she's not worried about me. She's yelling at the kids that are, mucking up, my brothers, and trying to get dinner ready. Because no one came to get me out of the cot, in that moment, I make the decision that I'm abandoned. And it's just a normal, everyday routine. Like there was no trauma, there was nothing, no one came and hurt me in any way. So you can imagine how many decisions our unconscious has made to get us to where we are now. So when you're working with just the conscious and the unconscious, it can be very challenging, is having to really make that commitment of every single time you feel that feeling or you think of that thought, you shift it and you change it and you make it, a new decision. And you can, if you've got someone that can support you and guide you, then you can go back into what memory pops. So where am I feeling this feeling? What memory pops that the first time I remember having this feeling, so that you can then shift it and make a new decision. But one of the reasons I love recoding is because recoding works with a higher, I call it the superconscious. So it's like the quantum field where all of us are one. So we've got our conscious that wants to change and meditate, for example, our unconscious that's full of patterns of behavior from our past that doesn't want to change because it keeps us safe, right? It's the reason we don't run in front of a car, because it knows that it's dangerous, right? So it is keeping us safe, but it doesn't want to change. So we've got this internal dialogue and conflict between wanting to change and don't want to change. Whereas the superconscious is this quantum field that's got all the codes, everything that's ever happened to any of us ever, anywhere. And it actually doesn't care if we change or not, as long as we're experiencing. So recoding goes into that quantum field and neutralizes the behaviors that are in our DNA that are causing the unconscious to hold on to patterns of behavior that don't work for us anymore. So when you're recoding, one of the things that a lot of people share straight away that they experience, one, they feel a lot lighter because the heaviness of, the burdens of those behaviors have gone. But the other thing is that a lot of, I notice, a lot of people notice, is this space in their head, because there's not so much dialogue sharing what they shouldn't be doing, or saying that that's wrong, to like, it's not real, I'm not there yet, that rational mind. It quietens down because it's now no longer holding that information anymore. So it's easier to visualize, it's easier to meditate, because there's more space in the mind, there's a lot more quiet energy for you to be able to let in those beliefs.
Well, and you talk about the word recoding. By the way, I love that concept of recoding. I've heard reframing, all of these types, letting go, all of that. Recoding, I like that. But what is the process? I mean, you're talking about tapping into the quantum field, where we know that that's where the universal energy is, and obviously we can try to tap into that, and many people have been able to do that. And it's fascinating when you think about creation and everything else, how there it is. There's the secret of creation, and everything else just lies within that quantum field. But how do you recode? I mean, how do I, how do I take that, whatever it is, and get into that quantum field and recode and allow that energy to change and to start to acknowledge and attract a different energy, a different synchronicity, a different whatever it happens to be, frequency into my life. How does an individual do that?
So the first thing is getting into a space of innocence. So going back into the place of nothingness is, and this is why it's it's good to have a practitioner like, or a facilitator like myself to take you through the process to start with, because just like meditation, or so, if you've got a lot of weight from these sabotage beliefs that are holding you down, then it's very challenging to get into that space of innocence, right? So it's heart, the heart coherence that they talk about, being in the heart center and being in the space of the void, where you are knowing that we're an individual, but we're having a spiritual experience, for example. So being in that space where there is nothing, like no thing for us to grab hold of. When you're in that space, you're in your purest form and you're connected to your superconscious. So the way I describe it, your superconscious, when you personalize it, is your higher self, right? So being in that space, then, when I'm personally working, I then have particular commands that I say to, clear the energy. You could do it with intention, right? Just say, hey, superconscious, see that belief that no longer serves me, let's get rid of it. And I'm sure that it would work, you know. It As a facilitator, I am able to tap into super conscious. I can do this. In fact, I've got a group after this that I'm working with. And so I can work on a level where I'm working in, like, with an individual, or I can work in groups, because we're tapping into the collective and I'm tuning in to what needs to be shifted and where it's come from. Because going into a little bit more of the depth of it, not only have we got our unconscious patterning from our own childhood, but then pulling in epigenetics, we have within our DNA all the codes, excuse me, all the codes from our generations that have passed. So, there's 6, 7 generations of information. And if you know anything about epigenetics, you know that it's not just that we are that we've got the codes from, genetic diseases, but we're actually holding on to emotions, beliefs, traumas, all of those things as well within our DNA. And so as a facilitator, I can go into the original event of where it happened and clear it from there, so that it's not replaying out in your personal history here.
So do you find, and this is what makes me very curious, do you find that as you're working with someone and they're struggling to try to figure that out, that you have the ability to sense, you're, empathic, you're able to sense what it is and guide them to that realization?
Mm. In fact, as a facilitator, they just sit there. They don't have to work it out. I'm working it out for them. And sometimes I don't even know what it is. I feel it's in a particular chakra, for example. And so we might work on a chakra or it's a past life or whatever. I don't, I did 7 years of past life regression at one stage in my life way back when I first spiritually woke up. And people can get caught up in what life they were and, oh, I was this and I was that, and get caught up in the story instead of actually looking at what it is that's holding you back. Like there's a reason that this life has come up, and it's because it had a particular trauma to it that's actually causing you to do X, Y, and Z here, right? You might have trouble flying, for example, and it might have an association to a past life, or you were burnt at the stake or drowned or whatever. So we work on what it is, that life experience, so that we can negate that, dissolve it, and so it shifts it in your body here.
Okay, and you talk about past lives, and I will be very transparent about this. I don't necessarily accept the common thought process about past lives, but I have a number of friends that have experienced that, so I totally respect it. Don't misunderstand. But as I think about it from a scientific standpoint, because I'm very much that way too, I
Mm.
think, how many past lives have I had? Well, how many generations before me have existed? And how many times that I experienced, quote, a past life, I'm literally experiencing that genetic memory from a past ancestor. And
Absolutely.
and I think that, for some people that say, past lives, it just doesn't happen. Uh, at the same time, scientifically, we know now that yes, we do have that memory of generations in the past, which literally can affect us to the point where it's here and now, and we think it's us, when in fact it was something that happened hundreds of years ago, maybe, and yet we are experiencing that because of the DNA memory.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I did 7 years of past life regression and got to the end of it and decided I didn't believe in past lives anymore. So, the same sort of thing. It's just exactly, it's in our DNA. It's something that's holding us back. I actually have had some experiences going through past life regression where I had it wasn't any sort of past life. Like I had many weird experiences with past life regression, right? And was this and that and blah blah blah. But then I had some where it couldn't possibly even be any life. It like I had one where I won't go into the start of it, but I jumped into the water and I was in fresh water and became a tropical fish. So a saltwater fish in fresh water. I went down, I swam down into, the bottom of this water, into this river, and there was a treasure chest. I grew human arms, opened this treasure chest, and there was crystals in it. I picked up one of the crystals and swallowed it as the fish. And while I was laying there as, getting the regression done, I felt the energy go down my throat and clear something in my uterus. So explain that, right? Like it was an illusion. I don't know what you would call the actual experience, but I had a physical reaction to it and cleared a part of my uterus that I didn't even know was blocked. So our mind is extremely powerful, right? Like,
Well, it is, yeah.
yeah, like where did that image come from? Because I wouldn't, like, if my rational mind was being part of that, I would not have made myself a tropical fish in fresh water that grew arms, like the concepts that our mind can come up with. Now, I have no idea where that came from, but I know I had a physical release and a physical experience that cleared something in my body. And that's all that mattered to me. But as you were saying, that you can have all of these experiences, and are they just, a genetic disposition from generations past. Thinking of that, we've gone all the way back to, the first cell that ever was created. Like
That's
all of us
right.
come from somewhere, right? Like all of us come from that first experience.
So you talked about a little bit about chakras, okay?
Mm.
And I'm always curious because I hear people talk about, well, if you've got a blocked chakra, you need to open that up and so forth. And I know that there are different thought processes about how that's done, but based on your experience, number one, how do people identify which of the seven chakras are closed? What are they experiencing that they can then say, if they're aware enough, okay, this is a chakra that's probably blocked, and then how do they unblock it?
Mm. So energetically, that I would say you've got to have that sensitivity to be able to recognize what's going on, be able to feel energy. Or the other way around is if you're someone that's new to all of this and you don't have that sensitivity yet, but you're on the way, you can play around with tools. So the very first, let's go back a bit. The very first thing is to recognize that intention is extremely powerful. When you set an intention, you've now locked in some information to the universe. So if you set the intention that you are choosing to clear your own chakras, then that's the very first step, because just that is now you've built a relationship with yourself, like you've built a relationship with the collective, the universal field, right?
Hmm.
So that's the very first thing, being able to set the intention and know and trust that it's going to come to pass because you've set that intention. So you've got to have that belief that by setting that intention, this is going to come to pass. I would say to anyone listening that is playing around with this, one of the things that you can do to start with is play with a pendulum. So a pendulum is really, you can have a pendulum that's got crystals on it like this if you want to, or you can just get a necklace, something that you've got a string with something that's got a weight on it. And intention, as I was saying, so I can get a pendulum and say, what's happening with my base chakra? And so, first of all, if you've never played with a pendulum before, you need to know what's happening with a yes and a no. So pendulum needs the information of yes or no. So if I'm going to tune into my base chakra, can you see that right now your audience won't see it, but my pendulum is going anti-clockwise.
Yes, it's going round and round.
Yeah. So to me, that's a maybe. That's meaning that but when I'm tuning into my base chakra, it's going anti-clockwise. So if I now set the intention, see how it's changing already? I'm going to set the intention to see now it's starting to go clockwise. So I'm setting the intention already before I even set it to balance my base chakra. And so it's now turned around and it's already going clockwise. So now if I say, I'm going to go to my sacral, so let's balance the sacral. So can you see that it already started changing? It's going backwards and forwards.
Yes.
So now I'm going to set the intention to balance my sacral. Now my sacral is going anti-clockwise.
Yeah, it's going counterclockwise.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you do it. Then I would just keep going up the
But
chakras.
so where it's so one, it was going counterclockwise, and you said that needed to, so it ended up going clockwise. When you went to your sacral, it was going back and forth and went to counterclockwise. Would you wait until it went to clockwise, or how do you do that?
So each chakra is, so your base chakra is masculine, your sacral is feminine, your solar plexus is masculine, your heart is feminine, your throat is masculine, your third eye is feminine, and I think it's neutral in your eye.
In your crown chakra?
Yeah, in your crown chakra. And so my base chakra would be like when I balanced it, it was clockwise. So my sacral would be anti-clockwise.
Ah, got it, got it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is fascinating, fascinating.
It's
So
interesting stuff,
question,
isn't it?
um, if you were to, as we come to the close, if you were to share with the audience something, a message that you'd really like them to hear and remember, what would that be?
If I had anything to share with your audience to really make a move to be creators in their own reality, I would share that to recognize the very first thing is to recognize how powerful you are, to know that you're not broken, that your unconscious is just trying to keep you safe, and you can choose whatever it is that you want in your life. You just have to believe it. So every morning, make the decision to choose what you want to create. Every day, make the decision, this is how I want to experience my day. And then believe wholeheartedly that this is something that you can do. We have choice. We've got free will. And so when you make that decision, you have the ability to line up with that decision and experience that for yourself. So remember, you're powerful, you are not broken, and you've got choice to choose to experience whatever you want to experience.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. So, how do people find you?
My Facebook is my personal Facebook is Elizabeth Elenor, and Elenor is spelled a little bit differently. It's Elenor. My website is elizabetheleanor.com as well. But yeah, message me on Facebook. I'm always on there. So that's one of the ways you can get me. My business page on Facebook is Peacemaker Ascension Portal. So if anyone wants to reach out to me for my biz page, that's where you can get me.
And your website, elizabetheleanor.com, and they're able
Yeah.
to get there too. And that's where they can access some services that you can offer to them.
Yeah, with some free resources. Yeah.
And do you do personal, or do you do classes, or do you both?
I do both. Yeah. So I do one-on-one sessions as well as group. I've got a group called Conscious Creator Circle. And also I support uh, people to attract the love of their life through learning these skills. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, there's so much more to learn, but I'm afraid we're running out of time. So, Elizabeth, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. It's some fascinating information.
thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you. And folks, thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed it and look forward to having you join us again soon. This is Dr. Doug saying namaste.